Now the advantage of this, folks, is as follows. Imagine if I were to store multiple replicas. I'm going to now bring in the fact of replicas. Replica. I have a big question. All right, I have a data coming in, ABC1234. I hash it. I generate the hash token 32. I know my first copy is going to go to N2. Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, oh good Lord, I'm totally running out of colors. Let me choose this. All right. So I know for a fact A is going to be here. Yep. That's one replica out of 3. What about the remaining 2? So what Cassandra does, if you look at this cluster, this part closely, right, what are you going to see? You see that I have a gradual increase in the tokens. Do you not? Whether you have a single large contiguous token, you see 1 to 25, then 26 to 50, 51 to 75, you know N1, N2 and N3 is in that order. 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20, you know N1, N2, N3 is in that order. So what Cassandra will do? It will place the replica here and then it will walk the cluster clockwise. I'm talking about replication. So if my replication factor is 3, this is my first copy. I did not say golden copy, silver copy, diamond copy, platinum copy, original copy. There's nothing like that in Cassandra. In Cassandra, it's just replica. All nodes are identical, peer-to-peer system. There is no master copy. Please remember this. So if replica, the first replica is here, and if I walk the cluster clockwise, naturally the next replica is going to be here. And naturally my next replica is going to be here. Right? So replication factor 3, if I have only one node, what does that mean? Cassandra will store only one copy. Wait a minute. I thought replication factor was a rule. No, who said that? Replication factor is a guideline. Replication factor may or may not be met. I just gave you a scenario where if you have a single node, your replication factor of greater than 1 can never be met. Cassandra will never store multiple copies on the same node. It makes no sense. So therefore, if I have to use replication factor equals 3, at the minimum, I need 3 nodes. So if there was a question that what is my minimum cluster size? Your minimum cluster size is equal to the maximum of the replication factor that you intend to support in your system. So if you want to support replication factor of 5 in your cluster, then you need minimum of 5 nodes. Even if you're storing 1 megabyte of data. The right way, of course. 1 megabyte of data, you really don't need Cassandra, but you get the idea. Right? This is replication, walking the cluster clockwise. So you can easily tell that, okay, so the tokenization, which is this hashing, determines where to start the walking. And let me give you an analogy. Imagine you have a line segment. You know this is the start, this is the end, and vice versa. There is a distinct starting, there is a distinct ending. But identify in a circle where you're going to start off, where you're going to end. Make sense? There is no start, there is no end. So you need to figure out from somewhere you got to start walking, correct? And that is exactly what the tokenization does. It identifies a node, start here, and start walking the cluster clockwise. Got it? Another important point, folks. If you have a Cassandra cluster of, let's say, 3 nodes, and your replication factor is 5, then the lower of the number, whether the size of the cluster or the replication factor, will be the number of copies in your cluster. Allow me to illustrate. Suppose, as I mentioned, you have 3 nodes in Cassandra cluster and your replication factor equals 5. How many replicas will you actually store? 3. Because there are only 3 nodes. Remember, no storing more than 1 replicas in a given node. That's not going to happen. What if you had these many number of nodes, and if your replication factor is 5, then guess what? How many nodes do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Size of the cluster is 7, replication factor is 5. Lower of the two numbers, 5. So you will have actually 5 replicas in your cluster. Make sense? So basically, the size of your cluster in terms of the number of nodes that you need to have is the lower, or rather is the highest of the replication factor that you want to support. And that should be at the minimum your cluster size. Okay? The other advantage of storing the data like this is, especially like, in the strategy, like, multiple token ranges, is that if a node goes down, for example, if N2 were to go down, when it comes back up again, you remember it has to basically handshake with every other node and say, hey, you know what did I miss? Right? Along with that, do you not think we also have to do some additional processing to figure out what are the data elements that it missed? While it's important to know who else might have joined, or it's also important to know who else may have left the node, that is a topology change. Don't you think it is equally, if not more important, to know what are the data elements that it missed? So therefore, because of this token ranges, it can say, hey, 5 to 10 token range, N3, can you please help me with? And by the way, 26 to 30 token range, hey, can you N4 help me with? So N2 doesn't have to overwhelm a single node for rebuilding its data set. It can distribute its total token range to multiple of its replicas and not overwhelm a single node. Another advantage, apart from the fact that it is able to, distribute the data evenly, right, among multiple Cassandra nodes. So V nodes, needless to say, because of all the benefit, is the default. V nodes is set up by default, and the value is 256. That means it generates 256 such token ranges by default. Not a good thing. You should be using anywhere between 4 and 32. Ideal value is 16 token ranges, 16 or 8 or something like that, right? That's the number of token ranges that it's going to generate and assign to each of these Cassandra nodes. And as I mentioned, this will be stored in the system.local and system.peers. The other thing that we need to really keep this in mind is, oh, by the way, before I go there, right? So now you can imagine whether I had 1 to 25 as a token range or this individual token ranges, you see my hashing is not impacted at all. The logic of placement of data is not impacted at all. Instead of matching a single token range, I now try to find out in which of these ranges my first replica belongs. And from that point forward, I'll put the other replica nodes.